Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Thursday, the day after, and it was fireworks all over the place. We'll recap what Jay Powell said, but it was the lunch lady, Janet Yellen, who ended up stealing the show. We'll tell you all about it. 800-951-0592. You know what that number's for. You have to have something outside of the debt, credit, money system, right? Something that's not in your bank accounts because you don't know what's going to happen. Something that isn't tied to Wall Street, something that isn't a debt instrument. And that one thing, that is gold and silver, and that is what we do. allamericangold.com is the website. And Jason, we got the soft shoe, if you will, from Jay Powell, the 1/4 point rate hike. We are now between 4.75 and 5% on a Fed funds rate. The bond market actually went down, if you can believe that. Jay Powell was essentially, here's where the Fed is. This is what this is what I took on. This is it, or we're going to go one more. Here's what they want. How about this? If it comes to, they want to get to 5. So they want to go one more time. So it'd be between 5 and 5.25. And then possibly that would most likely be it, right? Then we'll call a timeout here. I think that's what they would like to do. But the news of the day, well, Jay Powell was giving his press conference. I mean, gold's roaring. Just like I told you. Gold's roaring. Wall Street roaring, right? Because we got the only thing that would have made it even better, right, was no rate hike. Right? They'd have been up even more. And then Janet Yellen comes out and says, no, we're not guaranteeing deposits. So this has been the big thing. And again, I've been telling you this for how long? First of all, it's not doable, right? You can't insure $18 trillion worth of deposits, and they don't give a crap about you and your small little banks. And she said the Treasury has no plans to insure any of these deposits. It'll simply be a case-by-case basis. Either your bank's got some billionaires that are friends of the bankers, or they don't. And if they don't, Jason, it's not guaranteed.
That's right. And you know, they don't have a lot of leg room, so to speak, to just say, hey, every time a bank fails, we should just, print a bunch of money or loan them money, and just, that's only going to go so long. So I think she wanted to make sure ahead of time that people knew, we're not going to bail out everybody every time. We're not going to do that. I guess it's nice to have a little bit of honesty from the Fed, I guess, Joe, right? I mean, it's nice for them to say a few things that are honest.
Here's the reality of it all. The bank runs will continue now. That's what she's done. And I know today, yesterday Dow was down like 500 plus points yesterday, by the way. And today it's up. They're trying to massage it. But here's what she basically told all big depositors. Now, is she talking to, and she is, some of you listeners out there, you know who you are. You've got way too much money in your bank accounts and you know it. But you're lazy. Right? You're like, I think I've always gotten by. And I'm fingers crossed I'll keep getting by. But the big account holders, these are going to be mostly small and medium-sized businesses. Maybe there's a venture capitalist or two, or a hedge fund, who knows? But she served notice yesterday by saying, listen, if you're in one of those banks that isn't that important to me, we're not insuring your account, which means what? These guys got to move them, Jason. It really defies logic. It's almost idiotic. But again, I think the Fed already knows, listen, thousands of these banks are going to disappear anyway. Let's just start the process. right? And I think if nothing else, one of the other things we're going to see, Jason, I think a lot of these banks are going to get gobbled up by other banks because they need to get bigger. I think every bank out there right now is under pressure to find a way to get big enough that they actually matter.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, Joe, for sure. She's going to not guarantee deposits. That is absolutely a message for big depositors to move it to a so-called safer bank. I mean, the problem with that, Joe, is you get too much panic going on at what banks are going to be safe. That could be another misstep, just like some of those words they made up over the last year.
Well, and again, I think it's simple, right? If you're a bank that gets stress tested, that's where you got to go, right? I mean, that's kind of the way I would look at it, right? I'll say this here. I take Patriot for an example. We're in a too big to fail bank. And I will tell you right now, if I wasn't in a too big to fail bank, I'd be making that move. Why? Because you know what? I can't risk it. Right? And again, I get it. For a lot of these people, they've been dealing with these banks for years, decades. They've treated them well. They know, I get it. They know who you are when you walk in. That's kind of cool, especially in this day and age. Right? They know who you are. Of course, the younger kids don't want to go into a bank anymore, but us old folk, we still go into the bank. But she just, and again, I don't care what you do. Obviously, I would love it if you buy gold and silver from us, but even if you don't do that, she's essentially telling you, hey, leave that money in there at your own risk. Patriot Radio News Hour will be back after the break. (800-951-0592). Joe and Jason here on this Thursday. A quick look here at the markets. As we talked about earlier, the Dow's up over 400 points. It was down 500 plus points yesterday. It's early. We'll see. Excuse me. The S&P is up 66. The NASDAQ's up 275. Gold's up 35 at 1985. Now, Kitco will have it up, I don't even know, $8 or $10. Got to remember when Jay Powell and the Fed minutes came out, gold was in electronic trading. So about 25 of those dollars were from last night. But either way here, gold, 1985. That's probably about the highest it's been since we're on the air this year. Remember, gold's come in, did hit $2,010. Jason, I'm telling you right now, what we heard from Jay Powell yesterday, what we heard from Janet Yellen yesterday, we're going to have new all-time highs in gold. I think we're going to have it very, very soon here. Silver, another good day here, up about 45 cents here, $23.10. This market update brought to you by our friends over at YRefi. Another alternative here, right? If you're looking for something that isn't correlated to Wall Street and you want a good rate of return, check out YRefi. If you got to have 50,000, that's kind of the big jumping off point for people. If you don't have 50,000, then it's not for you. But if you got $50,000 or more, you can use an existing IRA. Some people can even use their 401ks. Here's something really neat about it. You can say, hey, you know what? I'll do it for a year. You'd get 6.25% return for 1 year. You go to 5 years, which is, by the way, the most they'll allow it, 10.25% return. Here's what I like about it. Unlike these, an annuity, you can do an annuity. They want your money tied up for like 10 years. And if you need some of that money before the 10 years, right, they whack you with penalties and everything else. Not YRefi. You get all of your principal back, all of it. If you need to, what something happened, you know what? I know I said I was going to do it for 5 years, but something happened. I need my money, but you get it all back, all your principal back. Check these guys out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or just call them 888-YRefi24. That's 888-YRefi24. 24. And Jason, we're talking about Jay Powell, and he was doing the soft shoe dance, really talking about, hey, we're almost done here. Yeah, we considered it. We considered not raising rates, but we decided that we would. That was the consensus, he said. And then he said, listen, inflation's going to be bumpy, but gave every indication that they could live with being done here. But ultimately, what the message he sent to the markets yesterday is May is going to be the last one, right? We're going to go one more in May. That's what we wanted. Now, we can do something different. And of course, he true to what he always says, hey, listen, we could say we're done in May, but then if inflation comes roaring back, we may have to do something else. But that by all accounts, we're either done here or one left. And that's why you're seeing gold and silver moving here as we get that. We're kind of getting close to that next stair step down. But it was comments from Janet Yellen that threw the market into a fit yesterday, because it's been very interesting. If you think about the Janet Yellen, and they've been floating this thing out, and they've been letting the TV float this out there that, hey, we're going to guarantee all the deposits. Remember, I've been talking about it. Me and Jason, we've been talking about it. I'm like, dude, that's not going to happen. There's $18 trillion worth of deposits. It can't happen. Well, finally, she came out and said, you're right. We're not even considering it. She walked back the comments from yesterday with the implicit support, right? Because that's what they've been trying to do, right? Jay Powell, Janet Yellen, no, the system is safe, right? Yes, we're going to support the depositors. That doesn't mean what people thought it was going to mean, and saying that, hey, once again, we'll determine what depositors are going to be okay and which depositors aren't. And Jason, that just puts depositors in a terrible position.
Central banks have never been around to actually help the citizenry. They're there to figure out how to gain from the system they put in place. And so they can't have a system where they guarantee everybody's money. Then everybody would be okay, right, Joe? And there's no gains to be made by those that make all the economic decisions if everyone can keep their money. It's it's the loss of other people's assets and money is what it makes the rich get richer. If you are a central bank and you have a government that you've bought and paid for doing what you want, you're not gonna lose that ability by making sure everybody can keep what they have, Joe. That's not how a crook works. That's not how you make your money.
Remember on Tuesday we had a gold sell-off Tuesday. Of course, the gold's taking it all back and then some now. But part of that was there was called a leak between the U.S. Treasury, the FDIC, and Secretary Yellen about the fact that they were working on a way to guarantee all deposits. And they let that story play out. And then finally yesterday, Janet Yellen said, oh, no, we're not considering that at all. And it's one of those things where this is a big game changer. Bill Ackman, he's very, very wealthy, very powerful figure on Wall Street, just was beside himself on CNBC after Janet Yellen's comments, because he basically said, Jason, and he's right. She just basically said, I guarantee the bank runs are going to continue.
Yeah, how could they not, Joe? When the situation, the way it's set up, is that these assets are not going to keep these banks floating. There's going to be X number of banks that are positioned poorly. I think the last number we were looking at was 180, right? Even if 100 of them could figure it out, that still leaves 80 banks that can't figure it out. Or even if 150 of them figured it out, another 30 that can't. And when those 30 fail, doesn't that make it harder on the other ones that did make it out the other side? It's all interwoven. It's all works together. It's not like any, very few of these banks are independent, that are not susceptible, insulated to the greater system, Joe. they all borrow the money from the same guys, don't they?
Yeah, and here's the sad part. You want to know the truth? This is once again idiocracy from these bankers. I've said it a million times. I'll keep saying it. Janet Yellen is a liberal clown, and Jay Powell is the weakest Fed president since Arthur Burns. Remember, Jason, I know you'll remember this. I was all over Jay. I named her the lunch lady, the most dangerous woman to Americans and maybe ever was Janet Yellen. She truly is one of those, I'll call it all about academia. Matter of fact, you know what's so funny? Jay Powell at his press conference, Jason, did you hear it? He was talking about, oh man, there's so much written. There's so much written about the effects of all of this stuff. And again, these people literally have no clue how the real world works. Let me tell you the realities about these banks. This whole thing could have been prevented. These banks knew, all of these banks know that these securities, these derivatives, these off the books, non-mark to market are underwater. You know how you fix those? Is when you buy them, can't do it now. See, this is the problem. When you buy them, any smart investor hedges. They hedge it. But guess what? They did not make that part of the rules. Why? Well, because hedging costs money. Well, gosh, if we hedge it, guess what? Then we can't reward ourselves as much. Right? We're not gonna make as much money by hedging. Because if they had hedged it back when they bought these things, Jason, we wouldn't be here right now because guess what? The hedges would be worth a ton of money.
So you're saying if they were worried about the depositors' money being safe, then they'd be fine. But instead of worrying, they're worrying for themselves and they ruin it.
It's an absolute slap in the face to all of us. And guess what? Every bank does the same damn thing. Every bank does the same damn thing. Matter of fact, I forget who it was early this morning. It was like, I don't know, 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning. I want to say it was CNBC had somebody on who was actually just speaking truth and said this, listen, technically every bank's insolvent. The only ones that we're going to know about are the ones where the depositors leave. Right? Which we know is what? 4,000 smaller banks. Right? Those are the ones that are in trouble. But he was like, listen, I'll be honest. And he won't name, and of course, and again, won't name any names. He goes, but there's some banks out there that are 50% under what? 50. I mean, it's incredible. And again, not one of them had to head. You know, when you think about Dodd-Frank, and I know, they rolled back some of the rules for these small banks. Yeah, but guess what? Even the original Dodd-Frank, that's not part, that should be mandatory. Any of these securities need to be hedged so the depositor doesn't lose their money. But Jason, again, right? It's all about what? Well, in that case, we couldn't report a bunch of profit.
Yep. I remember about a month ago, before these bank failures started happening, I had mentioned that something that hadn't happened in our lifetimes, Joe, had happened, which was that the deposits in these banks in America and throughout the world, but in America, actually went down. You know, despite everything that's happened and all the economic crises that have happened over the years, deposits have always gone up. You know, they're printing money just by the fact that they print us into some sort of low inflation, 2% forever and ever, means that the deposits go up because they're making more money. But the amount of deposits went down. Total deposits in banks had been going down for a short period of time for the first time ever, just since we've been alive, Joe. And it's kind of interesting. That's when the bank failures came rolling in just right behind that. And if more people keep messing with their deposits, it's going to get worse.
And again, think about this, because Jason brings up a great point. The government was mailing out checks for almost a couple of years. All of that's gone. So by the end of government stimulus, we've seen deposits fall. Then you start factoring in corporate profits start falling, right? Those deposits start falling, right? We're going to have a natural loss of deposits that's going to amplify the problems here. And of course, all of this that we're seeing, it continues to make things even worse. And it's going to be a situation where this isn't contained. They haven't acted bold enough. It seems like, Jason, they try to do, well, what's the least amount we can do, right? What's the least amount we can do? And then maybe hopefully we'll get away with it. And of course, at the end of the day, every time they do the least amount, Jason, it's not enough.
Right. And I always go back to the Fed's ultimate agenda, the things that they'll never say out loud, which is how do we profit from these things? It's one of the reasons I feel like even though Jerome Powell, you're right, it looks like maybe one more rate hike. Still wouldn't surprise me if they just, as long as markets go up the next day like they did today after a rate hike, why not go a quarter point and just keep on going? Because a lot of assets to mop up out there, Joe, to put to profit off of, right?
We'll be back after the break.